Howdy sports fans. Today we are going to be making a rain skirt out of 1.1 silnylon. I think that's the beginning weight, and then the impregnating the silicone into the fabric to make it waterproof then makes it 1.4 ounces per yard, I do believe. So this is a rain skirt that you can wear backpacking or around town. For this wearer, I made it to a 40-inch hip, and then you can cinch it down just like this. You bring the slits to the back side so that as you're walking, it is unimpeded movements. So we'll be making that instead of with a purple fabric from my friend Colleen that you see here. We're going to be making it with this gray fabric, and I'll kind of walk you through that. Silnylon is especially hard to work with, and what I've found the easiest way is to kind of cheat. I use the seam in my kitchen table as kind of a straight edge, and you make your measurements for how big your square you want it to be, and then you line up those marks. I don't know if you can see them on the video, but there's a mark here and a mark down there, and so I had lined that up. You just take a Sharpie marker and you draw along both sides to create that edge, and then I also will just leave it here and use that same edge to cut with my scissors, and then I've got kind of like a track to be able to follow it. Okay, the way I've done my measurements is to take whoever's going to be wearing it, their waist or their hip, whatever the largest circumference is. For women, of course, it's probably going to be the hip. For men, maybe their waist, but the largest measurement there. So for the skirt that I'm making today, I had about a 39-inch waist, or excuse me, it was a hip on this on my friend, and you're gonna add another 16 inches both for seam allowance as well as for overlap in the skirt. So about 14 inches overlap, and then 2 inches on each edge for seam allowance. So be 39 plus 16 is 55. So that's going to be one length of the skirt. So this will be 55 inches on that dimension. And then for the length, again, just allowing 2 inches on either side for seam allowance, arguably a little bit even more because I'll be folding this one edge over, but this doesn't have to be exact. So I used, I had my wearer measure from their iliac crest down to about right above where their hiking boots would begin, and that length for my wearer was about 36 inches. So I added 2 inches for seam allowance, and it's going to be about 38 inches. I will tell you that most of the manufacturers of these rain skirts, there's a handful of cottage companies on the internet, and their lengths were measuring anywhere from 24 inches to 27 inches. So this, of course, is a bit longer than that, but my goal is that if it is raining, and say you're wearing gaiters just on top of your rain boots, this will prevent any rain whatsoever from getting in your boots and keep you 100% dry. But still, of course, the benefits of a rain skirt would be to allow for ventilation up the skirt versus like rain pants, where in the summertime, if it's raining, it gets pretty stinking hot and makes hiking not as enjoyable. Second step after cutting out your rectangular fabric is to create the rolled hem along all four edges. I do both of the long edges first, and then I'll do the short edges to finish it off. So it should look like this all the way around. Again, the rolled hem facing the same way on all four sides. One of the keys to really making this project look professional is to use a rolled hem foot, which I've already gone through the liberty of installing on my machine. It gives you this nice, clean, professional appearance. Doesn't allow the silnylon to fray over years of use and abrasion, and really gives you that clean look that you probably couldn't do on your own by just rolling it and inserting it into the machine. So I'll show you guys how I use the rolled hem foot, but also specifically with the silnylon. Okay, so the way that I get started is to get some pre-cut sheets of, this is just like tissue wrapping paper, and place that underneath my foot. That'll give my machine a little bit of friction to work with this silnylon. And then you take the nylon and kind of get your rolled hem started by pinning it. So you lower the foot and then lower the needle. Remove the pin. And then lift the presser foot. And again, your needle is down there, so it's holding your material. And get that spun up around that curl that's in the foot. So again, I kind of start my loop and get that ready to go. And then I'm going to go backwards to lock my stitch in place. And then bring it back forward. And I kind of use the tissue paper to also kind of help guide those first couple stitches, because I'm on the very edge of the fabric. Perfect. Alright. And then you gently have to guide this hem the whole time, because otherwise it just will not want to cooperate, and it'll work much easier this way. So I kind of use this finger to hold that hem over, and my pinky to guide this tissue paper so it doesn't become too crooked to one side or the other. And then I just start sewing like this, and then you can bring the material in on this edge to create more of a roll if it's getting a little bit too thin, and then you can pull on it if it's starting to kind of bind up and snake around, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But I really encourage you to practice with scrap pieces and get used to this. And then also every once in a while I'll lift up on this foot and make sure that my curl is still going around that metal curl on the presser foot. And then I'm always also double checking what's coming out of here to make sure it's not doing anything funky. When you get close to the end of the tissue, you just bring another strip in. To continue along. Okay, and then when you get to the very end, you also want to back stitch a little bit to lock that. And then bring it up. And trim your piece. And then I found a good way to get the tissue paper off is to fold it over on itself, kind of create that crease, and then it should just pull right off. Now we have all of the rolled hems done on all four corners, or all four sides. We're going to flip that so that the rolled hems are facing down, and then we're going to get ready to cut our Velcro. I'm going to use two 3-inch strips. So I'll take my tape measure, and this is already the two edges butted up against each other, for 6 inches. And then I'm gonna cut that 6 inches in half. So you take one of your 3-inch strips, and I suggest that you use the soft side, because this will eventually be pressed against the body. So put that in the corner here, and we'll sew that in with just a single straight stitch. Or if you wanted to use a zigzag stitch, which actually I might do, just to really seal those edges. Okay, so we have our upper right corner of our silnylon rectangle. We have a soft side of the Velcro up. I would recommend that you use pins to hold this in place. And then I did decide to use a zigzag stitch. I'm going to get my tissue paper ready to go to start this. Okay, I'm going to get my tissue paper ready, and I've switched to my regular foot on the machine here since I'm not doing the rolled hem anymore. And do a back stitch to lock that thread, and then I come forward. And I like to remove my pins as I go so that they don't get in the way when the needle comes around. Okay, now we're done sewing the upper right corner Velcro strip. But to sew that other strip where that overlap is going to be, we have to kind of fold it up like it's going to be put on that person, create approximately a 7-inch overlap. And what I like to do, and what I allotted for in my measurements when cutting, was an extra inch on top of that 39. So really kind of a 40-inch waist/hip measurement. Divide that by 2 and that's 20, and that's approximately, look at that, that's approximately the overlap that we want. And again, we're going to be cinching up this top here, so you can easily make it adjustable and again kind of snug it up around your waist. So we've got a 20-inch with our overlap. I'm going to mark both edges on the inside because that's where we'll be sewing that Velcro. Okay, and then we're gonna come, and our other soft-sided piece of Velcro is gonna be sewn in. Okay, so we have our 2 3-inch strips of the soft side of the Velcro sewn onto the skirt. I have my chalk mark from earlier for this other flap. And then I'm gonna fold that over, and I can kind of see it through this other side. It's a little bit transparent, and I'm gonna mark that on this other side, because what's gonna happen is we're gonna fold this top edge over to create a channel for that cord lock. So I have to imagine that this is all folded over. And then this edge is going to Velcro to that edge. So I need to imagine that fold and then sew the hard pieces of the Velcro strips to this side of the fabric. So I'll allow a 3/4 inch fold, pin my Velcro, and then sew that on without the fold on it. I don't want to sew the Velcro with it already folded because I want to be able to have that channel free so that the cord lock can run through it. Again, for demonstration purposes, I have my Velcro, which will be folded over like this when I make that channel. And I folded this and pinned it just for size reference. And I made sure that my Velcro would fit. And then when I overlap, excuse me, this will be folded like this. When I overlap, I'll need to sew on this side of the fabric, right here. And then again, sew without that, sew without that fold in there. Now we have our 4 pieces of Velcro sewn in to create that connection. And then all we need to do is flatten this back out, fold it in, so that again our rolled hem from earlier is facing in, and then we'll just sew a straight stitch along this lower edge that whole way, all the way across the entire width of the fabric. I took the time again to pin along where there wouldn't be any Velcro, just to make sure that my seam stays pretty close. Also, what's nice is I can just use the width of this presser foot for the approximate width of the channel I need to make. So again, come back on the stitch to lock that in place and then come forward. And again, back up in order to lock that stitch. I have it folded over on itself after I created that channel the entire width with that straight stitch. Now I'm going to take my cord lock or elastic cord and fold it over on itself to get an approximate length. And then just cut that. And then what we'll do, and it's pretty easy to do, but just run the cord the length so that it comes out on this other end. The diameter of elastic cord that I'm using is 1/16. Okay, then once we have our elastic cord all the way through, I'm going to kind of clean up the edges here and then seal them so it stops fraying. So I got my fancy trusty Bic lighter to seal that edge. Next we're going to take that shock cord, ensure that it's right there at the very edge. Maybe kind of center it up or maybe butt it right up against that straight stitch from earlier. But we're going to lock it into place by straight stitching a whole bunch of times back and forth over it, as well as right here on the other side of this Velcro just for added security. Okay, so to finish up the project, again I have my locks right here, the stitching lock. My elastic cord the entire way down the channel. I did an overhand knot after I doubled up on the elastic to kind of make that a little bit of a stopper knot. And now, time for the fitting. The wearer for this skirt that I've made, along with the purple one, is about the same size as me. And say I made it a little bit bigger, but that way you can always cinch it down, kind of even it out there. Bring this to the back side. And again, so then when you're walking around town, or if you're hiking and taking those big steps and need to get over objects, rocky part of the trail, then there you go. And it's super lightweight, can crunch down into a small ball, and you can impress your friends with what you made on your sewing machine. Good enough for government work. Excuse me.